The overnight success that everyone thinks exists, nothing happens overnight. The only thing that happens overnight is the sun comes up and it goes down. My standard of works is not your average Joe's. I don't cover up nothing. If my name's against it, it's done right. If it's not done right, I ain't doing it.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Behind the Brand, a series where we focus on the journey to building successful businesses. Building a business is never easy, so we have special guests like today who are going to tell you exactly how they got to where they are. So I hope you learned something for it, apply it for yourself, and make sure you stay tuned to the Undiscovered Creative community. Subscribe, like, and comment below.
My name's Kyle Anderson, and I'm from a company called Anderson Projects, aka AP. Anderson Projects is a building company, renovation, interior and exterior, extensions, all sorts, but we're not your typical build firm. We offer the basics and then we do what our clients want, and we always over deliver. So, you know, people expect a reasonably nice renovation, very basic in the sense of new kitchen, new bathroom, new lighting, spotlights and all the rest of it. And then they come in the house and then they get their wow factor of things that they didn't even anticipate or expect. So I suppose the best way of putting it is we aim to renovate and motivate. AP came about, to be honest, is that I had my second child, my daughter, and I missed out on a lot of time with my son. And I said, you know what, I can't be telling kids to push their dreams and do something bigger with their lives if I don't prove to them that I can do it myself. And I procrastinated for years. I kept on, my wife would say to me, you've got to leave and set up for yourself. And I keep on saying, tomorrow, the next day, the next year. And it prolonged for 7 years. And then one day I just said, you know what, enough's enough, has to be done. The idea of the company name was always there. In Jamaica, my grandfather had a company called Anderson Associates, and my dad, even though he was born there, he was raised here, he also set up Anderson Associates in the UK, but never really pushed it too far. And then I had a chat with my dad maybe a year ago, and we were talking, and then I found out that my great-grandfather also had an Anderson build firm and architectural firm, but they were all in the drawings and everything else. But the story of all three of them is that none of them ever collaborated as they moved forward as in age. So I said, well, you know what, let me set up a bit of legacy under the name, because, you know, people always do businesses but for themselves. And me, the way I looked at it was, well, my son might not decide that he wants to do building work, and that's fine with me. But for every project that we do, it'll always be submitted that Anderson Projects done it through the council, through the portals and all the rest of it. So for me, it was just building that legacy, because at the end of the day, when you're dead and gone, you're remembered by your legacy. When people drive down the road, they're like, oh, AP did that house. And then all of the interactions that I have with people during, you know, so that sparked me really to do it, because, you know, I wanted to spend more time with the kids, and I have done. But in reality, I've also realized that when you run a business, the work-life balance doesn't really exist. The work-life balance that everyone talks about doesn't exist. I feel like people get caught up with it. But then my argument to it always is that when you have to make a rum cake, do you always have the right amount of rum, or do you put a little bit extra in? Is there a little bit extra seasoning in the chicken, in the curry? You know what I mean? Nothing's ever balanced. You know, we all have one limb that's slightly longer than the other. So in essence, is there really balance, or is there equilibrium in accordance to who we are? So in my opinion, I think it's opened my eyes to a lot of things. But I just want to make sure that my kids and my family and the people that I interact with have something to remember, not just me, but a bit of positivity that we bring with what we do. Because like I said, we do renovate, but we motivate a lot of people as well. before I started AP Projects, I was working with a good friend of mine, shout out Dean. We worked together for 13 or 14 years. We worked for all different types of people. The manager of Coldplay, the Saudi royal family, who else did we work for? Directors of Big Brother, British and American Tobacco, and they're the ones that I can remember, you know. And then we worked for everyday people. To be fair, he brought me in when I got made redundant. So, you know, I have a lot of testament to say, you know, he brought me in and helped me get onto the path a bit more consistently. Before that, I also I worked for a dental firm, teaching dentists how to place dental implants and sell dental nursing courses and marketing and all those sort of things. But I got made redundant from them because they said I was too young to go into sales, even though I sold more sales of courses and products at exhibitions than some of their sales reps. But they just said I was too young, in inverted commas. But we move. If it hadn't done, to be fair to my old boss, if she hadn't done that, I wouldn't be where I am today. So everything happens for a reason. It's all part and parcel of the journey and story. And then obviously I'd done music in the past as well, was signed, but never really pushed it too much. Opened up for, like I said to you guys before, you know, opened up for Akon, done the Museum of London, Trafalgar Square, the Barbican, a couple of places in Manchester. But it's just another moment in time of leading us to where we are now. The dream when I was younger, in honesty, I didn't know who I was. So for me, I grew up in a place called Hillingdon, which many people probably wouldn't know. It was a predominantly white area. I come from a very multicultural family. My nan was English, Irish. My mum, until recently, didn't know her dad, but he's Jamaican as well. My dad's Jamaican, but my grandma Pinky, rest her soul, she was mixed. They're German and Scottish, so we're full mix up. So you know what I mean. But so I suppose for me, it was a bit of an identity thing because I grew up around a lot of geezers and people like that. But then weekends, I go to my cousins in northwest London, southwest London, and you know. So for me, it was always a. There was never like a 100% dream. I was always discovering, but I just loved people. So I was always around people. I was always in Hillingdon. I was always known as Kyle. You know Kyle. Like, do you know what I mean? It's not this thing. I suppose one of my good friends, Marcel, he called me Mr. Friendly. He said, "You friend up with everyone." But I said, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't cost anything to be kind. So, you know, yeah, there was no real aspiration. I think at a moment in time I said, I want to be a policeman, and then that soon wore off from growing up. But I suppose when I got into maybe 13, 14, we all MC'd, as everyone did back in the day at some point. And for a duration, I suppose, if I'm honest, I wanted to do music for quite a long time. And I used to be in a crew called Mad Sick, which is funny to think about now. But I used to MC with a guy called Screw Fizzer. He's a popular artist that's out now. He's very successful. And I've rubbed shoulders with quite a few of the MCs over time. I've been on sets and all the rest of it. But then kind of slowly diverted into singing, so for a duration. But life took over. So you don't, when you get older, you either dig in and start working and start making something happen, because your mum doesn't want you sitting in the house and doing that, and so you have to sort of pick yourself up. So music was a passion, but real focus of what I wanted to do, it hasn't really been until the last 2 years where I've finally figured out who I am and what I'm doing. Prior to that, I was existing. We also talk about code switching, and another good friend of ours, Lee, he's another one that understands it as well. It's being able to be comfortable around anyone and everyone. You know, you can put me in any room as I am now, and I'll be able to conduct myself with whoever. it was interesting because in Hillingdon, everyone's kind of a certain way. You come home and everyone's like, oh, what are you being a rude boy for? And then you go out to the raves or whatever with your friends and all the rest of it, and they'd be like, oh, you're like a rude boy geezer. Do you know what I mean? But the point of the matter is like, when you're younger, you always just want to belong. But the truth is, you need to belong to yourself. And I think that now, where I am now, I understand that. But for a long time, I knew who I am as a person on a daily basis. But as you get older, you really look more within yourself, especially when you have children. Children will really, especially if they are very much like you, they're a reflection of you. And especially when they're trying to discover themselves, it's difficult because when they look at you and you don't know who you are, it's then very difficult for you to say to them how they should be. So, my oldest is 13, he was 13 not long, a couple of days ago actually. But me and him, I'm the 28th of July, he's the 30th. And me and him are very, very alike, but at the same time, very different. Discovering yourself is never easy. And we're forever changing. I think people get too caught up with, oh, I should really be like this or I should really be like that. But the truth of the matter is, we're forever evolving. It's circumstances, life, all kind of make you change and become who you are. I think people say, have this habit of saying, even in relationships, they say, oh, you shouldn't change for your partner, or, you shouldn't have that from them. But the truth of the matter is, if you love and care for someone, you'll change. It doesn't mean that you're changing for a negative. It means that you love that person enough to become a better version of you for them. And that's how, my grandparents never went the longevity, but I watched my wife's parents, and they've been together for 40 odd years. And I say to myself, if they can do it, why can't we? We come from a generation of so many broken families. And for me, in everything that we do, it's about being more than a broken family. There's tough times. There's times have never been easy, do you know what I mean? But you have to grow together. And when you grow together and you go through the pain together, that resilience is like no one else. No one else can touch that, People think that they can kind of tickle that and upset it. But the truth of the matter is, they don't know what you and your partner have been through. And I think the same thing relates to business. It can be very difficult in business. On the outside, everything's shiny and new, but behind closed doors, the graft, the grind, the long days, the long nights, the not seeing people, not seeing family, friends, that's all part and parcel. The overnight success that everyone thinks exists, nothing happens overnight. The only thing that happens overnight is the sun comes up and it goes down. After that, everything else is just a moment in time. From a very young age, in between college and all the rest of it, I always did some form of construction or landscaping. So a good friend of mine that used to be one of our neighbours who lived opposite, his dad was a roofer. So in the summer holidays, he'd be like, come on, Carl, come with me and Daniel, come and earn yourself some pocket money over the summer holidays, and we'd go and lift tiles up and all the rest of it. It would break all health and safety standards right now, but it's something that we did. And then also my dad, he's a building designer and a project manager, and he looked after massive hospital builds for donkey's years for the NHS in Reading and around the country, massive developments and penthouse builds and all the rest of it. And from a young age, he used to take me around site, surveying and all those sort of things. So I picked up a lot of that with him. And whenever Dad was knocking out a bathroom or doing something, I was helping him. He taught me how to wire up lights before I knew how to ride a bike. So, I've always had involvement in it, but I never actually went to college to study it. So everything that I've learned has been organic as I've learned through the years. Arguably my only two qualifications are in business. I've got a diploma in business and in music tech. That's it. But other than that, everything else is self-taught. But, to be honest with you, you can have all of the knowledge in the world, literally, as in an illiteracy, but have no common sense to the actual reality of things. And in building, a lot of it's common sense. And I get called up by, I won't name companies, but I get called up by companies to check on people with inverted commas qualifications, to check up on their work. And a lot of the time, talk and listen to what they've said or what professionals have so-called done, and basically make them look silly because I talk more technicality than they do. So, yeah. In honesty, when I look back at education, I look at education as it's important, but I'm dyslexic, so I don't learn like everyone else. So I actually didn't even know that I'd passed, let alone got a distinction in business. I thought I'd failed. So I was like at home chilling, and August, my mum was like, you got to go and get a job. And I could have gone to uni. So the fact of the matter is I didn't really, being honest, pay it much attention. Because I always struggled with reading and things like that, and I still struggle to read now. Not as in I can read plans and all those sort of things, but if someone sits a book in front of me, I just look at it and it's like blur. But if I sit in front of someone and they're talking, or an audio book or the rest of it, I'm a sponge, I'm absorbing it all, and I learn a lot better that way. And that's how I've learned a lot, you know. But education's important, and you still need to educate yourself, and I still educate myself. There's times where I force myself to sit down and read the recent reg or the rest of it, you know. But, you know, everyone learns differently. Not everyone learns laterally. Some people learn, like I said, verbally, listening, and some people just kind of read a book and literally just digest it. In regards to me and my family all being in construction now, when I was younger, I could have thought of nothing worse than working in construction. My dad wanted me to go to university and learn construction, and I told him where to go, being truthful. And then obviously through working with my old business partner, I was then obviously doing bits and pieces, and my dad would see that. He was like, wow, you know, you really kind of know your stuff. But then when I told him that I was setting up AP, he actually got made redundant around the same time. And he said, oh, we're gonna go and work for another company. And I said, nah, come, let's go and do something. So my dad actually has a very strong involvement in what we do. Not all the time, but definitely around the planning and the drawings and those sort of things. Because I always thought it was important that for the legacy of it, I could say that we've done something that him and my grandparents never did. But he's super proud. You know, when people put pictures or comment on things on social media, he'll always put a comment on there, even in his 65 years, saying, oh, his granddad would be proud of him. So, you know, in that essence, he's happy. He's happy that we're doing it. And some of the stuff that I've done, he's like, how did you even think of that? I said, well, I followed you for years, and, you know, we made something happen, and obviously we're only just getting started, so. That moment was unreal. That I could tell my dad to come and work with us. We're still not in a capacity that I can have him around, as in working with us full time, but I don't want him to have to feel like he has to kill himself like he did all the years before. Him and my mum have always worked hard, even though they're friction is still, but they can be in the same room. But now he can pick and choose what he does. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, in the Caribbean, they say every mickle make a muckle, right? So, you know, he makes a little bit here and a little bit there off the bits and pieces that we're doing, and he can just go and do, you know, the fire door stuff that he does now. He hasn't got to kill himself with the fire door stuff, you know, it's hand in hand. So, yeah, it's a good feeling. And one day, I'll be able to retire him and my mum and my stepdad and dad and Mish. And they won't have to grow off the way that they are. So, yeah. So setting up AP was a moment that happened literally, I think, at the end of a football game that my father-in-law was watching. And I just said, why am I still procrastinating? So I got online and I registered the business, literally like that. And then had a conversation with my old business partner, said, bro, I love you, but I can't do this anymore. I need to go and do something for me. A part of the catalyst of that was my nan on my mum's side had passed, and I said, you know what, I need to do something because time is just going. So I said, you know, it's just has to be done. And then the investment side of things, I can hand on heart say in the early stages of setting things up, I paid for everything. So with all due respect to everyone that's helped me now, that there's been help now, people have helped me, but it's been self-funded that set this up. Every tool, every screw, it was been self-funded. One major challenge is building surveyors, independent building surveyors that aren't yours. Had a major headache with one last year and caused us a lot of grief. But not because we were doing anything wrong, but because he wanted to cover things up, and I don't cover up nothing. If my name's against it, it's done right. If it's not done right, I ain't doing it. I'll down tools, I'll wait. You might owe me 10, 20 grand. We're gonna do it properly. And that's what I stand by. That was a major issue, and then I suppose other is staffing. You know, in the building game, it's few and far between for quality, but the ones that are good are really good, and the ones that are bad are really bad. And the truth of the matter is, especially in construction, it separates the men from the boys, and and also the women from the girls. Because I know some female tradespeople, and they're wicked, and they make some of these guys look stupid. So you know, I think staffing's a major thing. I've had to let a few people go because they just didn't meet the AP standard, and you're only as good as your last job. And you know, I will never leave a job if I'm not happy with something. If it needs to be redone, we redo it. So, and I kind of pride myself on very rarely ever being heavily snagged. To be fair, I've never been heavily snagged, actually, in honesty. And we've done a hell of a lot of jobs in 2 years for a relatively small firm. To be fair, yeah, we haven't been snagged very much, actually, because we do really eye it up and have attention to detail. And my standard of works is not your average Joe's. And I think if you lower your standards, you lower yourself. So it's always best to trying to keep that same momentum and same quality across the board, just like how you present yourself. You know, people always say to me, every time I see you on site, you've got a fresh pair of trainers on. I'm like, well, like when I'm going to visit people or whatever, if we're not in our site safety boots, it's always important to present yourself. And, you know, especially from our backgrounds, people look at your foot. And, you know, they always say, you know, in the Caribbean, my grandma always used to say, you know, leave the house looking like somebody picked me, you know? So look like you belong to somebody. Shout out to True Pal, because I know he also testaments to that a lot for his grandmother. But it's true. You need to present yourself a certain way. And, you know, I'm in an industry where you can look like everybody. You know, the typical polo shirt, you know, blue jeans, and turn up on site and everyone's like, oh, hello. But when we turn up, we look like we belong to a company, and we don't, but we're trendy with it. So, you know, and that was always important to me. I didn't want to look like every Joe Blogs. I wanted us to stand out. I always knew that I wanted something to be with a signature. So that's how the logo became. And our tagline for our company is a signature finish. So the signature was important. And it's quite funny because it's recognized quite a lot very early. You know, it's funny because sometimes we'll be out somewhere and they're like, oh, you're the guys from TikTok, or you're the guys from Instagram. You know, or was that a function way out somewhere? And then someone shouted out, AP, always positive, always pushing. And I was like, what? You know, it's so, branding's so important. And build firms, they don't usually have amazing branding. It's usually, you know, I don't know, DC Construction or BB Building, something like that. And I just wanted it to be something a bit cool, you know. It doesn't have to be, yeah, with the company's Anderson Projects, that's the name of the company, AP Anderson Projects, but people reference it as AP. And to be fair, whenever I wear the branded clothes, this we don't wear to, I don't wear to work every day. It's t-shirts, oversized t-shirts and snapbacks we do, but we go to places and people are like, oh, you're a clothing brand, and I'm like, nah, that's my build firm. They're like, wow, like that's wicked. Being able to deliver quality work requires quality people. And I think sometimes, especially in the building world, it's very easy to flood sites or projects with lots of people and expect things to move quicker. But you can have lots of people on site but end up with a load of busy fools. And to be honest with you, unless you're ants that work incredibly well together, it's better to have a few quality guys that you pay a bit more or a lot more. You have far more better productivity. Like I said, I've got my right hand man Jacko, who's out at the moment, but God willing he'll be back soon. And then I've got Christian, who I've known for 15, 16 years, that used to work with me and my old business partner as well. So he's now working alongside with us. And then we've got Valentine and Sergi that are like, there's 2 of them, but you think there's 6 of them the way that they work. The guys recently have done arguably a month and a half's work in less than 2 weeks. So, having that quality people, that means that you can offhand those sort of things to those sort of people, and then allows me to then go and do other, I call them side missions, a kitchen, a bathroom, a redecoration job in between. And a good friend of mine, again, who's a wicked chippy, Dave, a phone call to him to come in and do those bits and pieces. They're people that are worth their weight in gold, and they're worth waiting for. And I, unlike a lot of people, I don't haggle the hell out of my guys. So if they tell me that they're giving me a price, I'm like, all right, cool. I'll give you that price because I know that they deliver the work. If sometimes I feel like if you haggle people on their prices, especially your tradies or subbies that come in, then they're rushing to get out the door. And we don't want that. We want them to be able to deliver. There is times we're under time sensitive situations, but it doesn't mean that we still don't deliver quality. I think it's important to pay people what they're worth. When you pay them what they're worth, they then show up for you and improve your worth. And then that the universe says that if you pass monetary energy to someone, you should pass it with integrity. And that's how the cycle of it continues. And then it grows. When you're not forthcoming with it and you're haggling with people, you're not just disowning them, you're also disowning yourself. So you have to keep that flow consistent. So that's why, I never try and short arm people. I think it's important to pay people what they're worth. Some of our biggest achievements with AP have been being able to work and create some beautiful homes for people. A prime example of this would be our Ealing project. Sarah, she was at the client. We did a house for her parents, and she allowed us to fully AP the house, as in give it a signature finish. The house was completely it was done. It was old, it was tired, and we basically took it from it being a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, separate WC into a 4-bedroom, 2 en-suites, main bathroom, kitchen, fully re-landscaped at the back, taking the house value from 600,000 to 950. I think our cost on that project was about 130, but we put signature lighting in there. The bathrooms, we went to town with them, really made something, and our parents were over the moon. So that's a major achievement for me. And then again, even being pulled up on stage a couple of times by someone that I used to sit down, Steve, and watch him on YouTube, and then now being, on first name basis with him, and seeing some of the people that I look up to, again, like Martin as well, and all this network of people, I've been around people that have been in the industry for 30 years, 20 years, but they look at me and say, oh, you're you're already something. So, you know, for me, that's a major achievement. And then the third and most important one for me is being able to promote positivity, because that's what I live for. You know, the building is the vehicle. It's the vehicle to everything that we do. But the end goal is to motivate people and be able to travel and motivate people and do those sort of things. The building is enjoyable, but the end goal is to be able to lift people when they're low. And a lot of people will probably already say, even in the short duration that we've been pushing, that I've done that a multitude of times over. And as we said off camera, you know, every day is an opportunity to lift people. Every interaction is a chance to brighten someone's day. People put so much pressure on themselves trying to know everything. And the truth is, the man that thinks he knows everything knows nothing at all. So, in my opinion, you just got to go for it. You know, all right, arguably, I've got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, and we all have experience in different areas. And what we don't realize is that all of those individual interactions, the little retail job, the little nail job, the beauty job, or the guys, he's been an electrician for a bit, he's been a labourer for a bit, he's worked in an office, he's been a car salesman. But all of these things build our skills to bring us to where we are today. You know, I've done more jobs than a labourer on a building site, ironically. But all of them led to me where I am now. So I think the most important thing is just get started. If you don't turn the ignition, the car's going to sit still. And Steve Harvey says, you're not going to put the new car on the driveway with the old car on the driveway on bricks. So you've got to get it moving. Get moving. Don't worry about it. You ain't always going to have it all figured out. If you always had everything figured out, we'd all be millionaires or fit as everything or whatever. That's part of the beauty, is not knowing, discovering, because you have to make the mistakes to learn from them. You know, when you trip up, wearing the first, for argument's sake, as a lady wearing heels the first time, and you're not putting this foot, that foot in the right way, you soon say, oh, hold on, let me just brace myself and then just take my time and move forward. And it's the same in everything. It's just, you just got to get started. Don't overthink it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You dust yourself off and you go again. That's it, you know what I mean? So I would just say the most important thing is get started. Don't overthink, because overthinking wastes time. And procrastination kills dreams, nightmares of all causes, because you're worrying about things that don't exist. If you can't fix something or change something in that very moment in time, why are you overthinking about it? You can't change it. It's there, it's happened. You know, my wife, bless her, hit someone's car yesterday. Not big, but she hit it. It cost me money. But am I sitting going, oh, No, all right, it's done. It's done, it is what it is. It's a moment in time. Just move. I think, like I said before, things happen in motion, emotion, in motion. You have to move, movement. Things only change from moving. You don't get better at driving from standing still. You don't get better in the gym from sitting on the bench. It's the reps. You need the life reps. Every rep, time under tension, time under stress, it builds resilience. And that's how people build muscles, that's how people build businesses, and that's how people build wealth, mentally and, you know, economically, you know, from the economic side of things, you know, it's time under tension. So, you know, we're all far too blessed to stress ourselves out. You just need to just keep moving, because there's many a person that's gone through trial and tribulation when you look back in time, that have come from absolute war-torn countries and become multimillionaires, or not even necessarily from a monetary value, from absolute turmoil, and become some of the greatest people that we've ever known. Use Nelson Mandela as a prime example. Spent however long in prison to then become, president of South Africa, And then, again, one more example is Bob Marley, was oppressed. People said, oh, you're a redskin, yada, yada. But look, he became one of the most famous people to ever live, and there's examples of that around us all over the place. So why are we, as our individual selves, sit and stress about these little micro things, that they're just micro things that build us up, that are building us up for the better in the long run, for the macro, to be bigger and better versions of ourselves? Everything that can be broken can be put back together. And there's an old Chinese proverb that says the broken vase had more beauty being put back together when it was glued after being broken than the one that was completely complete, because it had a story and it had strength. When you build a new house, and, or even better, when you've got renovating an old house, you can't make that house bigger and better without knocking down those old walls, digging deep within the grounds of that property to dig new footings. And when you dig those new footings, you then have to concrete them in place. And then you build with your new blocks going up. And that is where the new beautiful house is built. And that is the same thing you need to do within yourself. You do the same thing within yourself, break it down, dig deep, set new foundations. You've just become a bigger and better version of yourself. But people look at it as, I've been broken. But they're not realizing that they're putting new extensions and new loft conversions on their being and becoming a bigger and better version of themselves. So, yeah. Just move. Standing still, you observe. A tree stands still and everything goes past it. But a river flows, it moves. And you need to be like the river and flow and move. One molecule of water never stays in the same place, ever. If you're like water and you flow and you move, even in an individual molecule, you then will see so much more. As in my younger self, I never really traveled. My friends, when they were doing up Ibiza, holidays and all the rest of it, I never did it because I was always working, because I felt like I had to work, or I got caught up with working in one situation or scenario and didn't live. So I would say move, flow, maneuver, because life will pass you by. But what would you rather it be? Would you rather it be that life passes you by, or you flow through life? AP projects, or AP, in the next 6 months. So I'm currently on a 16-week blitz of fitness, mindset, which I'm always developing for myself, and business, and also the AP podcast, which I suppose is a kind of a way of me announcing it, because I've not told anyone. So, other than a mutual friend. But yeah, it's a case of pushing it through and building on the network. The plan is this year is to figure out how we set up in the UAE. That's been a dream of mine for a long time. That won't leave me, it haunts me daily, to set up in Dubai, and the UAE. So I'm going there in October with my brother to visit some friends, but he doesn't know yet, but he'll probably find out now that I'm going to be doing podcast interviews when I'm there. So yeah, it's to set things up for the podcast and also see how I can cement myself over there. I've got a good reputation, I know people over there, and it's a case of then just figuring out whether we do it in a building capacity or a consultancy capacity. But it's something that will happen in the next 6 months, a year, but the podcast will be underway by no later than end of October, beginning of November, by then we're planning to have at least 3 or 4 episodes under our belt with some interesting guests. So yeah, that's the vision, is to take the company to the UAE, and eventually do more motivational speaking, I suppose. It's not supposed, say it with intent, to do more motivational speaking and just bring light to people's lives on a daily basis. We're AP, always positive, always pushing, signature finish, say less.